What is up, everybody? And today we are here to have a look at Maw of Souls. Yet again, we're doing these dungeon guides on Heroic, just so you can get an idea for the trash and the boss tactics. Maw of Souls is based in Stormheim. It's a really fun dungeon. It's very short as well. It's only 3 bosses, but there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of unavoidable trash in this instance. So that's kind of where this plays out. So you do 3 bosses, but you deal with a lot of trash. So moving up towards the first boss now, called Yimron the Fallen King. He's a pretty easy boss, to be brutally honest with you. You just have to dodge the stuff on the floor, kill the ads, and watch out for his knockback. That's pretty much all you have to do throughout this entire encounter. So as you can see here, we're just coming up to the pull now. So more formally, the knockback's called Winds of Northrend. So when you see him starting to cast Winds of Northrend, just make sure you're watching out for that. And then he also does an ability called Scream of the Dead, which you need to make sure that you stay away from him when he does, which is a fear. Other than that, tanks, there's nothing to be really aware of him other than the knockback. And then he does have a phase in which he spawns a good amount of ads, so just make sure that you're killing the ads when they spawn. This is probably one of the more visually stunning instances. I think like this starting stage is pretty good, but then once you do the sort of like the little cutscene in a second, you end up with a really cool instance on a boat, which is cool. Here's the stuff on the floor you have to avoid. So just make sure that you're dodging out of stuff there, and then it kind of moves pretty randomly and then spawns the ads from the patches, so you just have to make sure that you're sort of dotting and moving with the ads as you need to. But yep, here we go. Yimron's almost dead now. I'm tanking 2 of those big skeletons, which isn't really great, but that's what Fade's for, so that makes life easy. So there we go. There's Yimron, the Fallen King, dealt with. Now, there is no immediate way to go here, so just to let you know, you run up onto the hill, which you'll see me do in a second, and you blow on the horn that is pushed out there. So we're all wondering what to do here. I just top myself up and then we click that. You see a little cutscene in which the ghost ship arrives, and you get captured and taken on board. Once in there, you free yourselves from your cages and you start dealing with a truck ton of trash. Now, this trash is actually reasonably painful, and on harder difficulties like Mythic or Mythic Plus, it's probably going to be reasonably challenging. These guys put a lot of AoE spam down on the floor, which is very hard to avoid, so make sure you're using damage reduction cooldowns and interrupting and stunning whatever you can, because otherwise you're going to be taking an awful lot of smash damage, and your healers are going to need a lot of time to recuperate. And especially when you're dealing with Mythic Plus and having timers to deal with, that's something that's not going to be the best thing in the universe. But as you can see here, we're starting to kill these giants. These giants spawn some green poison patches on the floor, so just make sure you're not stood in that. And you can see the pools are fairly large, so you're going to be dealing with sort of like a decent amount of trash at all times. We're coming up towards sort of like the second boss in the instance, who is called Harboron. And once you do Harbour on, the next sort of set of trash is almost Gauntlet-like, but we'll talk about that in a second. We're just coming up to these stairs, up these stairs here, and then we've got 2 more trash mobs to kill before we move up onto the top deck of the ship. It's quite cinematic, this instance. Like, you kind of move, it's very sort of like clear where you move through. Like, you go up to the dock, you blow the horn, you summon the ship, you get on the ship, you fight your way out of the bowels of the ship, fight a boss, and then you move forwards to the very awesome last boss, which we'll talk about later. So up here, you can see Harboron. Now, this is what we need to learn when we're dealing with Harboron. Damage dealers and tanks, we need to interrupt something called Void Snap. And what Void Snap does is creates a ripple of the void at the present location, inflicting increasing shadow damage to all players. So make sure it's being interrupted. We also need to kill the shackled servitors that spawn during the encounter, because they are pretty damaging. So just make sure you kill those. Healers. The boss is going to target a player with an ability called Fragment. Fragment deals a lot of damage. You just need to make sure that you are healing through it. And as you can see, there's big AoE patches on the floor that you need to make sure that you're avoiding. He's not super complicated, but all of his abilities do a fair chunk of damage. So just make sure you're trying to avoid as much stuff on the floor as you can, and killing ads when they come up, and also just become real healers. Make sure you're healing targets with Fragment. Tanks, just make sure you're helping with the interrupting. That's pretty much all you need to do here on Harboron. Now, the last set of trash that we're moving through now is very Gauntlet-like. It's you just like move up. This is another set of challenging trash that you don't want to overpull, because you do have the ability to die here. So make sure that you're sensibly pulling, CCing when you need to, And then also just like making sure that you're like the casters, the sort of like the casters who have ability to heal, make sure you're nuking them down as priority targets, because otherwise you're going to find yourself in a bit of trouble. Try and take these in groups of 2 or 3. Don't overpull and take like large packs, because otherwise you're going to really struggle. Like we overpulled here and took 4. The problem is that we had casters and we didn't have enough interrupt, so that these guys started healing right up again. So you need to make sure that you're being quite sensible when you are dealing with this trash. Otherwise, as you can see, stuff is bouncing to high health because we just don't have enough interrupts, and both of mine are on cooldown almost constantly. But once like you've dealt with this trash, you deal with a small sort of like mini boss, which is just a larger health like elite mob, before you jump down and deal with the last boss, Helya. Now, if you have done any questing in Stormheim, you will know who Helya is. She is a big old sort of Helya is the fallen queen of the Valkyr. She was once Odin's right hand, and raising the spirits of the Vikal champions to the halls of valor to prepare for the final battle and the fate of Azeroth. So she's really, really cool, and you can see in the background here like just how cool this instance is. You're on this big ship that's like going through this stormy sea with tornadoes all around it. It's amazing. It's a really, really well done, very cinematic thing. Reminds me a lot of Spine of Deathwing back in Cataclysm. So once you've done that, you killed that mob, you jump down, and Helya appears, and she is awesome. There she is, look. So, within the Helya fight, what do we need to do? First, stage 1, kill the tentacles. Like, kill and avoid the tentacles. Those things deal a truckload of damage, so make sure that you are killing them from range if you can, and you are avoiding the poison patches that she throws on the floor. She's also going to do a smash on either side of the ship, so make sure you're looking for what the boss does and sort of like avoiding the smash. Now, the ability she does when she sort of like screams at the ship is called Corrupted Bellow, which increases in a massive it deals a massive amount of damage repeatedly to enemies in a frontal cone for 3 seconds. So just make sure you're avoiding that. Damage dealers, you are looking to destroy the destructing and grasping tentacles to wound her during the siege of during the first phase. This is really, really important because these things need to die as quickly as possible because they do a lot of damage to tanks and melee, anybody in range of them. She also spawns tentacles randomly across the ship, which blast holes in the floor of the ship, as you can just see there. So just make sure that you're sort of like, once tentacles spawn, sort of like watch your ranging, make sure you're moving to adjust, things like that. Watch for the poison pools and things like that are spawning, because you just don't want to be hit by any unnecessary damage in this phase. So this is a 2-phase encounter. So the first phase, as you can see here, is just fighting the tentacles as she's trying to assault the ship. And then halfway through the fight, she smashes through the ship just like that, and then stuff really gets real. She enters the fight. So in this phase, she's either going to put out a big AoE on the left and right of the ship, so just make sure that you're dealing with that properly. Move out of the patches yet again. You'll see her breath in a minute, and here's Corrupted Bellow. She just comes down here, and I'm stood right on the wrong side. You can see how much damage that really, really does. So just make sure you're looking at her when she's casting that to avoid any unnecessary damage. Once you've done that, though, it is again just avoid as much AO as you can and nuke the crap out of her. This is the very, very good point to be popping something like Bloodlust, using Drums of War. If you don't have, I would always recommend, by the way, keeping some sets of Drums of War in your bag, just because of how useful they are if you don't have Lust classes with you. So if you don't have Shamans or Mages or Hunters, just keep hold of them, because it's always going to be useful to have a set for when you really, really need them. Now, you can see the health pool there, that we didn't get her anywhere near dead, but then she is sort of like a god, so that we weren't expected to kill her, but you don't get an execute phase, which kind of sucks for some damage dealers. But once you've done that, delete the boss, and that's all done. That's Maw of Souls, guys. We're getting close now. We haven't got many left to do, but thanks very much for watching. I've been Sinestra, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.